Hey everyone, in today's video we're going to be making a crop top inspired by this picture. Start by taking your waist, upper bust, and 2 arm measurements, so right under your armpit around the arm and I did about 3.5 inches below that. And that'll be the size you'll use the elastic for and the measurements you'll draft with. So we're going to half the measurements you took for the original amounts, and then you'll add 1 inch to the top and bottom, and then 4 inches to each bodice side, and then 2 inches to the sides of the sleeves. And I did the sleeve 3.5 inches long, and the bodice is 8 inches long, plus the extra inches added, as well as with the sleeve. So I didn't make an actual pattern for this, I was just tracing onto the fabric because it was very simple, like rectangular shapes, and I started off with the sleeves on the fold, so like you only would have to hem one side kind of thing. And for the actual bodice part, I cut a rectangle that was the length of the upper bust measurement that was halved and added 4. And then I just ended up finding the middle of that at the bottom and then cutting where the waist measurement was. You can also subtract the smaller number from the bigger number and just divide that in half and then mark in that amount on each side, and you'll get a perfect center. So now I'm just pinning the sleeves right sides together, and I ended up sewing those at 1/4 inch seam allowance, just because I wanted more like more gathering kind of thing. If you want it to be extra like gathered and like maybe not poofy, but something like that, you just need to make the fabric longer and use the same amount of elastic. So now I just ended up folding up the hem. I found out that 3 of these gingham squares were 1/2 inch. It might not be the same for yours, but you can always measure it, and like it makes it a little bit easier than having to mark it out. And I'm doing this inside out, so then I'll just hem it and then turn it inside out kind of thing, or I guess right side out. And I'm not too worried about there being a raw edge because we're going to take the elastic and sew that like kind of in the middle on top of the raw edge. And just repeating the same steps on the sleeves. And I pretty much just sewed in the middle of the hem, so there's no particular measurement. So starting off with the elastic, I'm going to take the first end and then just sew it down with a zigzag stitch back and forth a bit so it's like held on, and then you can pin the other side right next to it and then stretch it as you go. You want to make sure you keep the same size of the elastic so that like it meets on both ends, or else it's going to be too tight and it might be uncomfortable. Especially with the sleeves, I found I had to play around with it a bit because you don't want it to like squeeze your arms or anything. Just make sure everything's comfortable. And then I finished it off with a zigzag stitch so the pieces were sewn together. And now for the sleeves, I'm going to match the seams on the side and on the side of the sleeve where I did the zigzag stitch on both and just zigzag stitch over the same part. I just wanted them to be lightly attached because obviously it's held on strong, but it might have like been hard to move around and stuff if it was like fully sewn on. So now I'm just cutting a 23 inch by 1.5 inch strip for the tie part. And you can change the size of the tie, it's just however long you want it. So I end up folding in half right sides together, pinning it, and just sewing around that, leaving an opening in the middle just so I could turn it inside out. And you want to make the opening like around 2 inches wide kind of thing, like you don't want too much to sew closed. And now I'm just trimming off the excess because there was about 1/4 inch excess fabric and that would have just been too much. And then I clipped the corners on a diagonal so they were more pointy. And then what I do is I drop the pin in and open it while it's in the bottom of the fabric and poke it out and then press it back into the pin, and then I just slowly turn the fabric inside out. It takes a while, and I know there's tools that you can use for this online. I just haven't seen one in my store or anything, so definitely gonna have to look that up because it's very time consuming. And I just use, I believe it's called a whip stitch to close the opening. You can just Google like a better tutorial, or I can find one for you guys. Yeah, it just makes it a cleaner opening than taking the machine and like actually stitching over top of the opening. I find it's just a lot cleaner and less noticeable. So now I'm just marking the middle of the top and then pinning the middle of the tie to that part. And I took the machine, just zigzag stitched it in place because I wanted it to like hold on strong. And also make sure you stretch the elastic behind it so you're not bunching anything up. And I just tied it up. Hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. It's supposed to be pretty easy. Let me know if you try it. See you guys next time. Bye.